Wherefore, Part 9. Whether anyone else will make sense of the image is a question that does not trouble Elizabeth. She tells people her art is abstract, but mostly she just likes drawing things out of context and on top of each other to see what happens. Her current piece is an exploration of her badger boy's bums, one overlaid onto the other. She has drawn both from memory. Mostly this has been an exercise in giving herself opportunity to dwell on the detail at great length. Thinking about his human bum makes her happy. Thinking about his badger bum feels more complicated, but she is working on this. A knock at the door snaps her out of this happy trance. It is Simon from next door. She invites him in, asks how he's been keeping, says nothing about the terrible state of his garden, does not ask what he and Philip are doing out there naked in the early morning. Assumes it is probably yoga. I'm good, Simon tells her, really good. I think this is the first time in years when I felt properly on top of my life. This confirms the yoga theory for Elizabeth. Clearly, they have been making some lifestyle changes. Would you like some jam? Simon asks. I hope it has a great deal of actual sugar in it, Elizabeth says with some wickedness. Homemade, proper jam with jamming sugar, Simon says with obvious pride. I made a really big batch of rhubarb jam a while back, and I'd rather share it round and have room to make some more. So you'd be doing me a favour if you could take a couple of jars. Elizabeth duly accepts said jars. Simon makes sloppy, mediocre jam, but he is rather sweet himself, and she likes to humour him. She has, over several rounds of saying yes to appalling jam, developed a strategy that works. As pie fillings with extra sugar, it is tolerable stuff. At some point she will no doubt find the will to knock up some pastry. Things have been a bit rough with me and Philip, to be honest. Elizabeth already knew this because when everyone's windows are open, shouting carries. Better now, though. Simon gives her a smile, the sort of making the best of it smile she sees so often on the faces of female friends. He's been so focused on the job, on where he saw himself going, his professional standing and all that wank, Simon says. That's not living. We were hardly seeing each other at all, no kind of life, and when we did, well, I kept getting emotional and that just pushes his buttons. What changed? Elizabeth asks, genuinely nosy. I don't really know. Simon shakes his head. He just mellowed out overnight. His priorities shifted. Now he wants to do yoga with me and we go swimming together twice a week and he's got time to sit down for proper meals and everything. Well, I'm very glad for you, Elizabeth says. After he is gone, Elizabeth rolls a jar of jam in her hands and examines the contents. She can see the texture of the rhubarb clearly, and by the looks of it there is ginger in the mix too. There won't be enough sugar, this is why it hasn't set. She suspects Simon is a little bit afraid of sugar. She also suspects him of spiralising vegetables, but they have never discussed this. It is a warm day, and she does not feel like baking, so the rhubarb jam goes onto a shelf to gather dust and watch her quietly and wait for its moment to come. We might pause here and consider where consciousness lives. The human brain is a convenient object to imagine it into, even if we aren't quite sure of the mechanisms. Plants get all sorts of things done by chemical processes, but how would they manage intention? That's a very different question. Where in a rhubarb does the intention live? And if you cut it and boil the rhubarb until you only have strands of fibre in wet gloop, where does the intention live then? Rationally, the answer must be that the low-sugar, unset rhubarb jam lacks for ideas as much as it lacks for physical structure. Even so, the jam waits. It is patient. It does not let itself go to pot as the days pass on the dusty shelf. It has purpose. Not many jams can say that of themselves. Would they, though? That's also an important question. If this was a business-as-usual, rationally based tale, the whole malarkey of standing about in the moonlight would have a sensible explanation. Sinister government agencies would turn out to have been putting drugs in the water. This would go a long way towards explaining the entire character of Stroud. Subliminal messages in the ecotricity smart meters might be making people think they are rhubarb plants. In some alternate reality, it might be a plot by Dale Vince to turn the whole world vegan. This is not that story. Science cannot help us here. The wererhubarb scorns science and turns its nose up at rational explanations. And yes, just to be clear, from certain angles, the wererhubarb really does have a nose to turn up. Being a wererhubarb is primarily an activity for the night of the full moon. However, the creating of wererhubarb is not so time restricted. The jar of magical intention in Elizabeth's kitchen will bide its time for as long as needs be. It holds its nature intact, even though its structure is a bit dodgy. The jam remembers what it is and where it comes from. It is ripe with full moon magic and the intelligence of soil. It is ready to be taken into someone so that it can lie in the warm cauldron of their stomach and sing lullabies to their bones. Who needs bones anyway? Or bilateral symmetry? Faces prove optional. An idea held in the form of jam, a magical potion young Simon did not know he was making when he harvested the surprise new growth of stems from his garden. A spell to save himself, one he needed but could never have believed in. His partner has slowed down to human speed and will now not work himself into a premature grave, sucking all the joy out of their relationship on his way. They will live. The rhubarb fills people with warm, generous feelings. They look at their jams, their pies and crumbles and think of someone who needs cheering up. It is then obvious to them that a gift of their culinary creation would be just the thing. And so the intentions of wererhubarb pass from hand to hand, a friendly sort of contagion that leaves comfort in its wake. There is a mind behind all of this, of course, larger than any individual pot of jam. It is a mind with a plan, and largely that plan is fueled by compassion. People are such unhappy creatures. They rush about, hurting themselves and everything else in the process. If they could just be made to slow down a little, they might be saved from themselves. It is a kindness to take them out of their skins and out of their minds for a while, from a certain perspective. How could such a powerful deity as this move among us unnoticed, you may ask? One deity would indeed stand out. The more of them there are, the harder it is to see what they are doing. We may see the enormity of the hill, but we cannot see the unthinkable number of oolites all working together to dream the hill into being. We just take the hill for granted because to us it seems big, solid, and uncomplicated. How could we ever see it as the fragile, determined dreams of a billion oolites almost agreeing with each other about what limestone means? It is much the same in your kitchen. There are yeasts who want to teach you the meaning of civilization and culture. Fungi want to talk to you about interconnectedness. The dried garlic wants a conversation with you about how you are mistreating the bacteria on your skin, and it also wants to chat with the people who live in your lower intestines and who are frankly much more spiritually advanced than you are. The jam in your kitchen is waging a war for your soul against the influence of an edible food-like substance made by a chemical company. There is something in your fridge that is trying to make contact with the elder race down the back of the cupboard. All of the eggs are dreaming about their past lives, and there are a whole selection of magical beings waiting to their turn to influence your understanding of reality. And that's just your kitchen. Amidst such a cacophony of intentions, it is amazing that the wererhubarb can get your attention at all. But it did, and here we are. You do not know what it wants from you. But then, have you ever asked the chocolate what it wants of you, or how the water feels about your taps? You have not. You are surrounded by magic you have no idea is there, whose influences you are ignorant of. Naturally, your life is confusing, and it is little wonder that at this point, you are going a bit mad.